Okay, guys, let's start. So, very good evening to everyone. So, welcome to the JavaScript testing with Joomla session. So, I hope you guys are here for at least for maybe you're interested in Java or maybe testing or JavaScript testing, and obviously you all are here about because it's about Joomla. So, I'm Ruchiranga. I'm a final year undergraduate at University of Moratuwa, Sri Lanka, and my story with Joomla started a bit about six months back when I joined to work on a project with Google Summer of Code with Joomla. So I'm not really expert at Joomla or testing or anything, but I worked on this project with writing JavaScript tests to the custom JavaScript libraries in Joomla. And I thought, why not share my experience with the community? So people have been working on the testing setup that we built to write tests to the code they write, and so I thought this might be helpful for the developers who write JavaScript code in Joomla. So these two are my mentors in the project that we worked on, Jeev and Ashan. Unfortunately, Jeev couldn't make it to this session. He had to leave early to catch his flight at 6, but Ashan is here. So okay, so how many of you are like really familiar with testings and have experience with testing so far? Okay, we have a couple of people who are not into testing. So I'll start with a brief introduction of what testing is, and then later we'll move on to the specifics of our project. So this is a definition I took from Tutorials Point. So the basic idea of testing is that we write code to address requirements, and we need to make sure we need to have some way that the code we write really addresses those requirements. So we use testing to do that. The benefits of testing: it gives a proof that the code we write covers the critical functionality of the product that we build, and of course it gives confidence for the developers. So when we have test cases passing, you can say, see, my test cases are passing, so I know this addresses the requirement that we have wrote the code for. And early fault detection, because when you have test cases and when you make changes, you never know what you broke, and having test cases gives you the chance to see anything that have broke as a result of the change you have made, and it gives reduced rework and cost, because when you have some bug in your code and you do not know it, and chances are that people would not notice for a long time, and people have written code on top of it, and finally when you discover it, you have to do a lot of work to mitigate the changes and get it back to the good state. And of course we can avoid this works for me, I don't know about you thing, because when you have test cases running on something like Travis build, it's common for everyone. So you cannot say something like this. And yeah, it has its drawbacks as well. So with tests, you cannot really say that my code is fault proof, because it's not really possible to say that you have addressed every single thing in the code with the test cases. So with regard to a small set of chunk of code, it's possible, but for a large project, it's not really possible. So that's it. So also there's this setup overhead. So with relation to our project, we had to spend about a month time figuring out what technologies to use, how to set them up, how to put things together to come to a state that we can finally write test cases on top of it. So if you are really like expert in this field, maybe it won't take that much time, but still, for any of you who are starting to write tests to a project or integrate things in, it will take some time. And the other thing is, need to write testable code. So you need to have a focus on writing the code that is that addresses the requirement, as well as you need to make sure the code you write is testable. So we came across certain instances in Joomla codebase as well that we had to restructure the code to make sure the code is testable. So towards the end of the presentation, I will show you some examples we came across, and yeah, that's something that you need to focus on. So there's something that there's an overhead in writing code and focusing on making sure the code is testable. So that's one thing. And another thing is that it only covers the code. So when you take a product, it's not only the code that contributes or influences its quality. So for example, there's the process you follow, and there are other contextual factors. So tests are only able to cover the code. So you cannot really figure out the problems you have in your process or the context with tests. Okay, so let's move on to testing in Joomla. So sorry. So this is just a simple overview of the code distribution you find in Joomla. We have about 7% JavaScript, and the rest is PHP and whatnot, HTML and everything else. So the PHP tests have been there for a long time. Mostly it must be because PHP is the most prominent thing, prominent language used in Joomla. And yeah, there are by now there are this much of different tests and about 10,000 assertions. But yeah, that's not really the focus of our presentation. So JavaScript testing. Why do we really need JavaScript testing? Why do we bother about it? So I'm showing you a real example that I came across in our issue tracker. So this person has put up a issue in the issue tracker saying something about the validation.js library. It's not doing what it is supposed to do. So, and on the comment section, I found this comment. He himself has posted saying he found when the bug was introduced, this specific commit made the bug, and he has said how to correct it and so on. So I dig deep in and had a look at this commit and found it was made by Ashan. Anyway, that's not the point. It was made in March 2014, and the problem was found in 2016. So it has been there for more than like 2 years and nobody has noticed. So the point is, like we have heard this, to err is human, to forgive is divine. The forgive part does not really apply here, but it's common to do errors for humans. So we cannot really expect a person to have a look at every consequence that is going to happen for a change they make. It's common, and it's okay to have some bugs. I mean, yeah, you cannot really look for everything. So what we can do is have something that can mitigate the consequences. So if we had JavaScript tests in our code base, the issue would have been found in 2014 itself. The person who made the commit would have found the problem then and there. And usually these stuff are really small things. You can fix it when you find it then and there. They aren't really big things. It's only a matter of fact that you do not notice them. So, and of course this post will not appear in 2016, and yeah, a lot of time and effort would have been saved. So I hope you got an idea why we need JavaScript tests in Joomla. Right, so what we have achieved so far with our project. So this is just the cover picture I used for one of the JCM articles I wrote. So we marketed as Just Married, Joomla, and Justmain. So we used Justmain as our testing framework, and we used Karma as the test runner, and Travis CI to run the test on Travis build. And yeah, we used some more stuff like jQuery, Justmain jQuery, require.js. These were just to used to make our life easy and write more good code. So our process is very easy. So we use Justmain to write JavaScript tests, and you can either run the tests locally using Karma, or you can run the tests on Travis. Actually, you do not have to run it. Once you make any pull request, it will automatically run. So this is just a picture of some actual test cases we have written using Justmain. And I'll go take you through a demonstration as well. It's just to show you the syntax. And this is a screenshot of the command line when you run the tests locally. using Karma. So you have all the descriptions of the test cases on the top, and at the end you are going to get a overview coverage report on how many lines you have covered and so on. And it's just the same thing in Travis as well. So all these have been merged to the core so far, and fortunately I was fortunate enough to get them merged even before the GSOC program ended. And this is an image I added to my second article to convince them to merge them soon. Anyway, so we have already written tests for 10 JavaScript libraries, custom JavaScript libraries that you find in the media systems JS directory. And so this is the file hierarchy we used. If you look at it, so I said we used Karma. So we have the Karma configuration file on the top that is inside the Joomla CMS directory, and everything else that is related to our project, everything tests and everything else are inside the tests JavaScript directory. So we talked and we had discussions with my mentors, and we came to a decision like we will have a folder, the directory name for each and every JavaScript library that we are going to write tests for, and inside that we will have 3 specific things which I will be telling you about in the next slide. And in the same level we have the package.json file and the test main.js file. The package.json file is a result of the result that came up because we used Node Package Manager to manage our dependencies. And the test main.js is an auto-generated file by the require.js plugin that we use to dynamically include the library files that we use in the test cases. And actually we did some modifications to that file as well, which I'll talk about later on in the slides. So inside this folder that we use for writing test cases for a specific JavaScript library, for example the caption here, we have 3 things. We have fixtures, we have spec setup.js file, and spec.js file. So the thing that you need to one thing I need to emphasize is that this testing environment is totally independent of the Joomla code base. I mean, it does not have any connection with Joomla. It runs separately on Karma server. So what we do here is that we write HTML snippets, small HTML code that can demonstrate that can be used to run the JavaScript code in the JavaScript libraries, and that's it. And we run the tests on top of it. So for example, say there is a JavaScript code in a JavaScript library to do something on a HTML element. So we write HTML code that supports that agrees with that requirement, and we run the JavaScript code on top of it, and we run the tests to see if the code or the HTML changed accordingly. So the fixtures folder contains those HTML snippets that we use to test JavaScript file, and the spec setup.js has the setup code we need to run the tests. So in each library we will have a line of code that would append the HTML fixtures to the browser page, and also you can have any other setup code that you need to put in that file. And finally the spec.js file has the test cases. So to run the tests locally, there are simple 5 steps that you need to follow. You need to clone the repository, open a command window, navigate to the tests JavaScript folder, and execute the command npm install. So that does install all the dependencies that you need to run the test cases. And once that is done, you need to execute npm tests, and the JavaScript tests would run. And one thing you need to know is that you need to have Node.js installed. To run the tests on Travis, you do not have to do anything. Travis is watching you. Whenever you make a pull request, it will run. All right, so let's dig deep into this folder structure bit. And So I told we have the Karma configuration file on the top. So what it does is, there are so many configurations. I'll just took out some important stuff. So it allows us to declare which files are to be served from the server, included in the web, included in the browser, and which files are to be watched. And it also allows configurations of plugins and reporters, and it also provides this interesting feature, single run or not. So this is pretty useful for people who write test cases. If you set this single run to true, once you run the tests, it would start the server, start the browser, run the test case, and stop the server. But if you set it to false, it will start the server, start the browser, run the test cases, and stop there. And you get the chance to go inside the browser and see how the tests were run, what were the problems, were the fixtures included in the correct way, and things like that. So, and also it has this auto watch feature. So when you make changes to the included files, it will rerun the tests again, so you do not have to do it manually, and things like that. And so when you run the tests, when you execute the command to run the tests, Karma server starts, and it loads all the specified files to the Karma server, and delegates the specific inclusions. I mean, like I said, we use require.js, so it dynamically includes the needed libraries to run the test cases then and there. And yeah, that's it. So require.js does not really natively support loading text files, so we use the require.js text plugin to make sure that, just for the consistency, to enable us to load the fixtures as well. The require.js, I told, the test.js file that is auto-generated by the require.js gives us two things. So it allows us to specify aliases. That is basically when you specify the dependencies in the tests, in whatever the files that you use, write code, you can have aliases defined for specific directories, and you do not need to write the whole thing. You can use that aliases whenever you need to load that file as a dependency. And also it allows this specification of dependencies in libraries as well. So for example, say we have a library which depends on jQuery. So this allows us to say that if you are going to load this library, make sure you load jQuery first, and then the library. All right, so let's see a quick demonstration on how this is done. I hope this would work. Yeah, sure. So what it's doing is cloning the Joomla CMS repository, and we'll first see how to run the tests locally. And so there's this minus depth one, just to make sure it happens fast. You don't need to use it. So once you have the repository cloned, you need to navigate to Joomla CMS tests JavaScript directory. So that is where all JavaScript files lie. And once you're there, you have to execute npm install to make sure that all the dependencies in the code are installed. Okay, so once the dependencies are installed, you need to execute the tests. So for that, you type npm test. So once you execute that, so npm test is like a command that so there's a pretty long command that you have to type to start the Karma server. So npm test is something that we have used as a proxy to that. So once you execute the term npm command npm test, it will in turn execute that long command, and the browser starts. You see the fixtures are being loaded and the tests are being run, and the results you can see at the top, and at the end you get the overview of what happened, the coverage reporter summary. And next I will show you a demo on how to write a JavaScript test on yourself. So I have prepared some demo library.js files and some tests to it. So what I'm doing here is that I copied that library file and pasting it on the media system.js directory, and the test files that have the three files I told, the fixtures, the spec.js, and the spec setup, I copy that and paste it into the tests JavaScript directory. The reason I put the library file in media system.js is just because the setup was made to use the files in there, but you can use any other directory. You can put any you can use any file, any library that lies in anywhere in the CMS in the code base, just by configuring the Karma configuration to suit it. Alright, so let's have a look at what the library has, the code library has. So it has a simple method that expects the fixture to have ID HTML element with the ID demo element, and it's going to hide it once you call the function. And in the fixtures, so I said we need to have the HTML that satisfies the requirement of the function. So we have a ID demo element, and that's it. We have a div that has the ID demo element. That's the only thing that we need to test that functionality. Here, let me see. Okay, I'm having troubles posing this. Okay. All right, I got it. So, oh, it's not full screen, right? Okay, so this is the fixture I talked about. So here you have this div that has the ID demo element. So just because the function that we had in the library had that requirement to have element with the ID demo element, and it's going to hide it. So another thing I want you to notice is that we have enclosing div with the ID JWC demo. So this is something we used as a convention to make sure that we do not have conflicting IDs in the elements we write. So for every library that we write tests for, we will have enclosing div with the ID of the library name. So for example, say you never know, so it's not possible for you to go through every fixture that that has been written previously. So there's the possibility that you might write element ID that conflicts with one that is written before. So once you have something like this that represents the name of the library that you write, and you refer the other elements via that ID, via that element, you are going to solve that. Yeah, sure.
So this is going to be inserted by Jasmine?
By Karma. Yeah.
Into the dummy HTML document?
Into browser. Into the you saw that Firefox browser that opened up. So it had all those fixtures loaded. You saw those images and everything.
Yeah.
So this fixture is being included to that browser page.
And at the time that all tests are running, so the browser screen is open,
Yeah,
that HTML document is containing all of the fixtures.
all of the fixtures. Yeah. So that is why I said we have to make sure that
Yeah.
it's enclosed in a specific div. And then let's have a look at the spec setup file. So here we have so we have this specific structure of code that we use, so you don't need to have you need to remember. You can have a look at the other test files that we have written, and so we specify the dependencies in here, and so this is the line I said that we append the fixture to the browser page. And here you can see this spec file we have written. This is actually the test that we have written in Jasmine, and so this is the syntax that Jasmine gives us to write test cases. So we write describe something, and we say it should have something like this, and we write the assertion with the command expect this to have something, or to be visible, or something like that, to equal, or something like that. So so what this code basically tests is we say the demo element, before hiding, it should have the demo element visible in the page. So we have used this assertion command expect. So we have used that JWC demo element, the enclosing div, and through that we are accessing the specific demo element, and we expect it to be visible. And in the next test case, we, before running the expect call, we run the hide element function that we got from the JavaScript library that we wrote, and after running it, we expect it to not be visible. So that is what this code basically does. First we expect the specific element to be visible, and after hiding the element, we expect it to not to be visible. So okay, so that's what basically the spec file has. And so here, so this is the execution of the previous test that we did, and now when you run it again, you need to see the new library included in here, and the new test results included in the this long set of results printed. So we'll see. So we are running the tests again. We executed the command npm test. Here the browser is starting. The tests are being run, and you can see here we have the JWC demo.js also included, and yeah. And if you scroll up, you can find the results of the tests, 2 test cases we wrote as well. So you see, we get should have demo element visible, okay, and should make the demo element invisible, okay. So I hope you get the point. All right. So do we have documentation? Yes, we have a very comprehensive documentation on this project. You can just note down this link, and it's a very comprehensive one. You can just go through it and understand whatever the tests are doing, and also it has some templates as well. So it's really easy if you follow it, and you can get the test written easily. So finally, I would like to note this up. And I told earlier as well, we need to have the codes testable. So so if you have a look at this this function, it calls itself. So if you include this kind of a thing in a JavaScript file, in a JS file, and run it once, that's it. If you want to test it and you want to run it again, you do not have any handle or any reference to this, and so there's no way you can run it again. So you need to make sure the code you write is testable. So the first thing that you need to make sure is that you can run a function you write again when you need. So this is another thing that we came across. It's easy to like pass this function just to the document ready callback, but you cannot really re-trigger this document ready callback once after the page is loaded, unless you refresh the page, but we cannot afford to do that here, and you cannot really test this again. For the problem that we faced was that this fixtures adding happens after this document ready is triggered, so we do not get the expected result out of it, and we need to rerun this. Most of the times we need to rerun what is passed into this document ready callback. So what you have to do is have a reference and give the reference to document ready, and you can use that same reference to execute the function whenever you need as well. Okay, so so I'm making an open invitation to all of you to help us expand our coverage, code coverage. We have a lot of more JavaScript files, JavaScript libraries remaining in the code base to write JavaScript tests to, and you all can contribute. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can ask. Thank you. Yeah, Nicola.
What percentage of JavaScript Joomla code is covered already?
I'm not really sure about with respect to the whole code. So we specifically focused on the JavaScript files in the media system chase, and we wrote test for everything that we found important. Yeah. Okay.
To take up your point, how much percentage is covered?
Yeah.
Is actually also dealing with whether the original JavaScript code is actually testable.
Sorry?
So if the original JavaScript code is not testable,
Yeah.
then it's really difficult to test it.
Yeah.
So what I understand of current JavaScript, if for instance require.js is using the AMD standard, and the AMD standard allows you to write a library with classes and methods and functions. So that makes every call within that library testable. How willing has Joomla already been to rewrite JavaScript in core to make it testable? So actually that's the question. Like, so how difficult is it now to actually go from this 60% up to 100%?
Yeah.
Without actually rewriting everything in the core.
We haven't really tried the options like you chose. We tried doing it by ourselves. So there were certain pull requests I personally made to restructure or refactor the code and make it testable. So that's how we tried to address it so far.
And have you been in contact with somebody already to have that pull request accepted?
Yeah, they are already merged now.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so there are things that I did not work on. There might be things, so you will only see them once you start working on that. Yeah, that's the matter. Yeah.
Dimitris is working
Yeah.
on making vanilla JavaScript, so
Yeah.
moving away from jQuery, and by having vanilla, I guess he can make it more testable at the same time.
Yeah, actually Dimitri is working on a calendar plugin or something like that, and he wrote test cases himself as well. Yeah, I helped him with that as well. Yeah.
He's going to strict mode in JavaScript,
Yeah.
which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.